This episode was about the COVID-19 testing.
Yeah.
What did you find interesting about this podcast?
So I've done a lot of testing in my life. Right? There's statistical testing. You do statistical analysis, and there are formal tests for whether what you found is statistically significant and thus a finding, or if it's just noise. I've been a college professor, and we do tests and all of that. And what this did is sort of clarify my thinking. I'd been unhappy about the discussion over testing, and I couldn't put my finger on why. This made it clear. You test for different things. So in college, there are pass-fail tests, minimum competency. That's all we're looking for. Are you over the line? There's also proficiency tests, like, how good are you? We want to find out if you're in the top 1%. We do that when you take tests to go to grad school, things like that. I think of the tests that we're relying on and pushing so hard as proficiency tests. They're clinical grade tests, and they allow physicians to pretty accurately diagnose if you've had the virus and where you are in the course of the virus's life. And that course is actually really important because you get infected and then the virus starts to multiply. It actually multiplies exponentially. So you might have, 100, and within a few hours, you're talking about having millions of virus cells, and they're all sort of throwing off RNA, and that's what the tests catch. Well, they throw off up to, millions of these things, and then the immune system fights back, and it dies off, and you have actually for weeks and months, small amounts of RNA getting spun off as a residual. The clinical grade tests catch all of that. But as it turns out, you're not contagious when you're spinning off low levels, 80, 1,000. You're contagious as in that exponential stage, right? You don't have symptoms yet because you haven't had your immune system fight back, but you're throwing off lots of virus, and cheap tests catch that. They miss the other stuff, so they miss about half the cases that the clinical grade test catches, but I don't care about that. For purposes of testing for surveillance to see if the virus is out there and if someone's contagious, the cheap tests are what we should do. And they could be as little as $1 a day. You get up, take the test. Positive test, you stay home, don't go to school, don't go to work. Negative test, you're good, you're not contagious, off you go. But what the FDA decided was we're not going to certify any test that doesn't catch 80% of the cases that a clinical test would catch. Well, that's a mistake. Like, you should drop the criteria to say 50, because the half of the cases you want to catch are contagious people walking around, and you don't want them walking around, and we can fight the virus more effectively. It also solves the problem we have in the US of contact tracing. Americans are notoriously private. They don't like telling people everyone they've met with, and they won't do it. Well, if you're testing everyone, you're testing the contacts too, so you don't have to trace out who they are. Everyone gets tested. And so if it was $1 a day and we tested everybody every day, which is, as a matter of distribution and compliance, unrealistic, that would be $140 billion a year. In a world of CARES Acts, that's nothing. Mm-hmm. So I think we should have pedal to the metal on cheap tests. And this could be, there are all saliva tests, so there's no awful swabs. It could be as simple as a piece of contact paper with a little saliva on it, turns color. Now I know. And so it's like doing pregnancy tests, right?
So who can help this along? Is it, if we were going to do something like this, is it Congress, the White House, the FDA?
All the above. I think the FDA has to change its standards for approving tests. And I think instead of putting money in for more labs and more people in labs, we don't want to have labs. It shouldn't go to the lab. Leave the labs to deal with those who are hospitalized, where physicians need to correctly figure out where they are, because it matters when you give steroids. It matters, for all of these treatments how far they progressed, and the clinical tests will tell you that. But they take a long time and they're expensive. Well, so reserve those for those intensive care, and let's get other kinds of tests as needed to stop the spread of the virus. And I don't know anyone who shouldn't be interested in that.